What I'm working on today is a Disston keyhole saw. It's in pretty good shape. I mean, it looks like it might have lost a little bit of length on the end right here, but it's still good. And, you know, the blade is not terribly, I wouldn't say it's pitted. I think it's more stained than anything. And there's a couple small cracks here in the bottom of the tote, but I don't think they're very deep. Most of the finish is going off the tote. Now, whoever had this thing before I got it, they sharpened it. You know, the teeth are still bright and shiny where it was filed, and the set looks okay in it. So somebody did a good job on sharpening it, and I just saw a little bit of scrap wood with it, and it, you know, did a pretty good job. Now, I'm just going to take it apart and you know, it's just. Now, I don't know how old this saw is, but there's a website online that you can actually look up the medallion, the design and the size of it, and it'll give you an idea of approximately how old a Disston saw is. And I may do that. What I'm going to use on the blade, I'm going to use a brass brush. I've got some Scotch Brite and some steel wool, and I'm going to use a chemical rust remover on this blade, and I'm not going to use any abrasives around the teeth. Since it's sharp and they've been set properly, I want to stay away from the teeth and just clean it up a little bit and make it look a little bit nicer. And then as far as the tote goes, I'll remove what little bit of finish is left on it, and I'll either do like a boiled linseed oil finish on it. I'll just load it up until it develops a finish on the surface, or I may even put a couple coats of lacquer on it and see what happens when I get to it. Now I've got the blade just kind of sitting in a little puddle of rust remover. What I'm using is this crud cutter. It's called the Must for Rust. Now, you can buy this stuff just about any place. It's actually a Rust-Oleum product. And my countertop here that I work on is a piece of like Formica. It's an old top off of a counter, and so it's not going to hurt that, and I'm just going to let it sit in there. I actually don't have any more of this, so I got to buy some more, but I think I got enough there in that puddle that it'll be enough to clean the blade up with a little bit of scrubbing, and then I will clean the top off and, you know, neutralize the acid. I always let this stuff sit on whatever I'm cleaning for a little while, and then I just use some Scotch Brite and just scrub it. You know, leave it sit on there for about 5 minutes, give it a chance to work, and just start scrubbing it off. Now this, you know, this is not going to do anything to the saw's teeth. And, you know, there's rust staining on this blade. It's all not going to come off, but it'll certainly look a lot better. It already looks a whole lot better than it did. And, you know, if you did this a few times, you actually might be able to get it to look even better. But, you know, you probably can't really tell, but I mean, you can see it cleaned a lot of that off of there. Well, a little saw blade like this, if you've got some sort of a top like this, where you can put it in a container of some sort, you know, just making a little puddle of this stuff and putting it in it, no big deal. You know, if it's a big hand saw or back saw, it's not going to work too good. It's just too big. But a little thing like this, it works pretty good just to do it like this. And this stuff works pretty good. It stinks a little bit. It has I forget what kind of acid this stuff's got in it. It kind of has a I don't know, maybe it has, I don't know, I think it smells like sulfuric acid, and that might be what's in it, I don't really know. Now today I'm going to work on the tote for this keyhole saw. Blade's all cleaned up. Now I'm just going to use this old chisel, and I'm going to scrape off the finish that's left on it. There's not a whole lot left on it. Once I scrape it all down like that, I'll go over it with some like 220 paper. The finish is so dry, it'll just come right off. And this is a good way to scrape off an old finish. And you know, it'll just take a little bit of time. Just have to take your time and do it, and be careful. And if you're careful, you won't mess anything up. But it'll, you know, that old finish will come right off of there. And there's not much left. It's just mainly on the end grain where it's stuck. You can see it just peels right off of there. And as far as finish goes, I'm just going to build up a linseed oil finish. I don't have any lacquer, and I'm not going to drive to the store just to get a can of lacquer to spray this thing. It's just not worth the trouble. It's like a 25-mile round trip to go to the store. It has it and come back, so I'll just use what I have. I got it all scraped off and sanded down, and it has a lot of staining on it, and it looks probably like it was maybe oil staining on it, and that's not going to come out. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to put some linseed oil on it, build up a little bit of a finish on it to protect it, and that'll be fine. I mean, it is old. I looked up the medallion last night, and this thing was probably made sometime between 1896 and 1917, so it's older than I thought it was. But anyway, we'll put some linseed oil on it, see what happens. It'll probably take a few coats to build it up, and hopefully it'll come out looking better than it did anyway. I always use paper towels to put this stuff on, and you know, you have to be careful with linseed oil. You know, it rags, and paper towels, if you got them balled up, they can spontaneously combust. When this stuff dries, it generates heat. It's something you got to be, you know, mindful of. And I always take these things outside and spread them out and let them dry thoroughly before I dispose of them, or I'll burn them. If I need to get rid of them in a hurry, I'll actually burn them. Just a good, you know, that's probably the best way to get rid of them. You don't have to worry about setting your house on fire that way. Definitely don't throw these things in the trash can. You know, if you're using this stuff, you really got to be aware of that. Now I finished up the Disston keyhole saw. I ended up putting about 6 or 7 coats of linseed oil on the tote, and it just sucked it right up like a sponge. I decided that was enough. I put a coat of Howard's feeding wax on it, and I let that sit and soak in, and then I ended up buffing that off, and I finished it up with a coat of Johnson's paste wax. You know, as far as the brass goes, the medallion and the bolt here, I didn't polish them up. I left the patina on, some of it on there. I just cleaned up anything on there, a little corrosion and dirt. I didn't want it to look like, you know, it's not brand new. I didn't want it to look like it was brand new. The staining in the wood, probably oil stains. There's nothing you can do about that. I mean, it's possible to bleach them out, but it's not worth it. But anyway, there we go. I'm going to put it back on top of my saw till where it was at, and you know, maybe someday I'll have a use for it.